Module 2 EOC review. The first thing we talked about in Module 2 was transforming quadratic functions. So we talked about how the a value reflects over the x-axis. It also stretches or compresses the function. The h value moves it left or right, and we always do the opposite of the sign we see. And the k value moves it up or down. So the first thing we did was write quadratic functions. So if I were going to write this, I'd see first that it's reflected. That gives me a negative. It's stretched by a factor of 2. It's shifted left 7. That gives me a plus 7 instead of a minus 7. I need the squared to make it quadratic. And then it's shifted up 4, so I do a plus 4. You try number 3. You should have gotten y equals 1/3 x minus 1 squared minus 5. The next thing we did was graphing. So we talked about how we found the vertex first. So this vertex is at -4, -2. It's facing down because of the negative, and it has stretched by a factor of 2. So I would go down 2 over 1. And I would draw it best I can through those points. You try number 5. So your graph should look like this. Vertex of 2, 2. It's not stretched or compressed, and it's facing up. We also looked at, if I give you the graph, you should be able to write me the equation. So in this one, it is facing up, so we do not need a negative, but it is stretched. So I count that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 before I go over 1. That gives me a factor of 4. My vertex is at +3, so I need a -3 in my equation. Need my squared term to make it a quadratic, and then it is shifted down 5, so I need a -5 on the outside. Number 7, you try that one. Your answer should be y equals -x plus 1 squared plus 3. Number 8, we talked about how we could use our calculator to get the information that we needed. And so I could type this in y equals, just like I see it. And your paper asks you for the x-intercepts, the y-intercept, the minimum, or the maximum. So if I hit the graph button on my calculator, I see that one of my x-intercepts is at -2. The other one is over at 6. I can find my y-intercept because I know if I'm looking for the y-intercept, my x has to be 0. So I can go to my table, and I see that the point 0, 6 is in my table. And the last thing is my minimum or maximum, which is the same as my vertex. So this has a vertex of 2, 8. So it would be up here. And then I would do the best I could to connect those into a parabola. That should not have gone past that point. Sorry. Something like that. Hopefully you can do a better job on paper. You try number 9. When you finish number 9, you should have gotten this graph, -6 and -2 were your x-intercepts. Your y-intercept was +3, and then your vertex, or your minimum, excuse me, was at -4, -1. Another thing we did was focus and directrix. When we're looking at the focus, we talked about how we always have the same x-coordinate as the vertex. So I see my vertex of this is -1, 2. The focus is always directly above or below the vertex. So I can automatically mark out B because that is my vertex. I can also mark out A because that does not have the same x-coordinate. So I know it has to be C or D. To find the y-coordinate, I do 1 over 4 times my A value, which in this case is a 3. So that gets me 1/12. So I would do 2, since it's the focus I'm adding, directrix we subtract. But this is the focus, so 2 plus 1/12, which gets me D. You try number 11. Number 11, the answer choice is also D. Right, for questions like this, we would first off want to talk about what our parabola actually looks like. This one would be facing down because of that negative. Its vertex would be at -6, +5. So it would look something like this. Then we can fill in our information. Domain, of course, we know is always -∞ to infinity. Our range is our highest or lowest point. It doesn't have a lowest point, so that's -∞. Our highest point is 5, and since we actually reached that, we use a bracket. Our increasing interval will be where our slope is positive. We're going uphill, so that would be -∞ to -6. At -6, we start decreasing. So we get -6, and we never stop, so that would be infinity. Now you try number 13. So your domain -∞ to infinity, your range -3 to infinity, increasing from 1 to infinity, and decreasing from -∞ to 1. We also talked about even functions. Remember, even functions are symmetrical about the y-axis, so when I graph them, they hug that axis. They're not moved left or right. So I know that the first one is not even because it has that +2. But I look at something like the second one, and it is not moved left or right, so that is even. You try these two. You should have found that this one is not even. It would be shifted, and this one is even because it is not shifted left or right. We also talked about whether each function has a minimum or a maximum, and that depends on how it's shaped. If it is positive, it has a minimum. If it is negative, it has a maximum. So this function would be positive, the first one, so it would have a minimum. This next one has that negative, so it would have a maximum. You try the last two. You should have found that this one has a minimum and this one has a maximum. We also talked about rewriting functions in standard form. We talked about that is the form a x squared plus bx plus c. So we did the -2, we left some space, and then we put our -4 outside. We squared this binomial, which gets me an x squared. I squared the last number, which gets me a +9, excuse me. And we put the terms together and doubled it. So I get 3x, double it, I get +6x. So I have this. Then I would have distributed my 2, or my -2. So I get -2x squared minus 12x minus 18, and I still have that -4 on the end. So then I can combine like terms. So I still have -2x squared minus 12x minus 22 when I put the 18, and then I get it -18 and -4 together. You try 17. You should have gotten 3x squared minus 12x plus 50. The last thing we talked about was quadratic regression. And remember to put this in your calculator. You use the stat and then select edit. The input would go in L1, the output would go in L2. And then to actually get the equation, you would do stat calc, and then you're going to choose option number 5, quadratic regression. Your calculator will give you y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and then tell you the values for a, b, and c. So you would need to substitute those back in. So this one gives us -0.3 x squared. And then my b is 22.3. And my c is just 23.